as we hop into game one, and my oh my, it is a battle as old as time itself, a rivalry between two great nations as we hop into England versus France to open up this best of three. And this is going to be exciting. Capoch on his England. We've seen this man play a lot of this Civ. He's very comfortable with it. The question is whether he's kind of updated it, all right? Has he got the latest version of ing.exe on his PC? Because this Civ is functioning a little bit differently in this tournament. We've seen a lot of prioritization towards Horsemen early on. We've seen some interesting kind of curveballs, enabling like a later timing playing in towards Imperial. Will he get that option when you're talking about a man like LucifroN manning the French, a high-tempo, aggressive Civ? Well, Horseman could be an interesting curve shot. I don't mind the idea of it up against this Civ, but I think the most critical detail, almost as it always is, because I'm a nerd for it, is going to come down to vision control. And one thing we did note about Doubt versus B earlier today, that can hold true here to a certain extent because it is once again a craft player versus an AoE player, is vision control. Will Capoch prioritize vision constantly? Or will he play somewhat blind? We saw this be the downfall of many players in the past, and it's something that I'm going to be looking towards because LucifroN is fantastic at ensuring vision control over the game. Not just getting his own, but also denying his opponent. So we'll see if that prioritization comes out, and if Capoch actually invests heavily in defending the vision that he's trying to gain here. Because I think the key for him is he wants to see what the moves are from Lucy to open this up so that he can actually pivot ahead of time and actually fully utilize those lombos by having them protected with the correct type of unit, whether it's Spearman or Horseman. So, for those wondering on the journey we were talking about, by the way, as I said, these two have had very different days. So when we look across at LucifroN's run, pretty easy cruising. 2-0 Ratti, 2-0 Corona Jacobi, 2-0 Happy Cat, and now here up against Capoch. Capoch seemingly looked like he was going to get an easy day. He opened up with an easy DQ, but the follow-up wasn't as simple. He had the 2-1 Cyclops, and then he just finished off a series that went fairly long against Dinky King, going all the way to a third game, a decider match where he won as the Roos on Boulder Bay. So this man, he's revved up, chest is pumped out, he's thumping it, he's ready to play. Let's see if he can deliver. And I think he has to. I think looking at the brackets, not even brackets, just looking at the players who had enlisted before the qualifiers even began, LucifroN was easily in my top 10. Capoch was, I'd say, top 20. That's not to write him out. I just think, like, Capoch, in some degree, like, has been suffering, because I believe he has still been playing AoE too. So he's one of those players that's kind of in that limbo of trying to, you know, still exist in X game while playing Y game. While LucifroN is fully invested. He's not playing Warcraft on the side because, lol, that was a failed relaunch. And he's not into the StarCraft universe anymore. So he really is just all in on this game. And I think that can really, like, help. It's not even a case of, like, how much you grind X or Y game. I think it's, like, when you balance multiple games, there are feelings that become attached to the way you play it. Not sadness and happiness, but also, like, more spidey senses, right? You know when something works. You can feel, like, the timings. We've seen players playing the blind and know what their opponents are doing because they played the matchup so much. And, it, like, you can sense it. That is, like, a very hard-to-measure skill that does actually exist. And if you ask high-level players, they'll tell you it genuinely is a thing. Like, you just essentially get a emotion in your ocean. You get a feeling for how things are going to play out. And when you play multiple RTSs, they can kind of give you these conflicting feelings because the overarching, like, dynamics of one game versus the other can be very different. It's the kind of, like, concept of if someone plays CSGO and Valorant, they might seem like similar games to an outsider, but someone who plays both of them at a high level understands they are conceptually very different games. And what feels right, like a good timing to rush A point or B point in X game will not in Y. And I think why that matters is when we talk about AoE2, it does feel like a lot of these AoE2 pros, I don't know if it's hesitation or if it's really where the meta is right now in AoE2, but they seem to play a little bit more reserved, a little bit maybe slower, playing for a later timing compared to these craft boys with that rich background in the Blizzard scenes. And I think this is where it could maybe hurt you because this is a matchup that really is all about tempo control on both sides. You have the French Knights able to dominate in the field and keep you on your toes. And on the same side, like on the other side, you've got the English with the Longbowmen really on that timer of trying to, like, find pressure in the feudal in the first 10 to 15 minutes. It's just a case of whether Capoch is going to get that opportunity. Straight away, archer range going to be dropped and horsemen are coming out. I like this play. This is really cool from Lucy. A lot of players would instantly go into knights, but this is cool because the primary reason isn't even longbows, it's this. You see what he's doing right now? He's going to hunt down this scout. So he's going to strip vision, and then Capoch has a really frustrating choice. Do I now invest in more scouts? Do I sacrifice villager production to get more scouts? Because you could easily get sniped out. Once 2 horsemen chase these scouts from the LucifroN side of the map, they will kill you by the time you arrive back in your base. You can see that one scout really isn't doing the business right now, but even just deterring him away because he doesn't want to lose them means that now Capoch has to make a really awkward choice about, like, how do I position these? How do I get the info? What is too risky? At what point do I lose them? Because once LucifroN is up to 3 horsemen, rather, he's going to kill these scouts every day of the week. In the meantime, Lucy able to dodge death. Nope. Nice move by Capoch. Moves in, gets him with the longbows just in time. So the scout's going to be sniped out, and that's going to be stripped away. But LucifroN, of course, can replace that scout more easily, courtesy of the fact he does have the School of Cavalry. Meanwhile, Capoch wants to do the same. He's going to have to sacrifice production. So as I said, very critical he does not lose his own scouts. LucifroN is prepping an archer army hidden as well. This is the other reason behind the horseman. He wants to keep Capoch buffered away from his base, so he doesn't actually 100% know that LucifroN's going into archers. He can assume, yes, but he doesn't know for sure. And also, this will mean that Capoch could be uncomfortable because you can see he's already investing into the racks to get the spearmen because the only thing he sees out in the field right now is these horsemen. Really cool play by LucifroN. And kind of unorthodox. How many times have you seen French players go into horsemen? Like, for real. Even up against England. I don't feel like we see it that frequently. And like I said, the ripple-on effect, it's not even just about going up against longbows. It really is about that denial of vision. So far, though, Capoch is doing a fantastic job of maintaining that. He is hesitant to push in, however, and this can hurt him a little bit because he's not actually getting the critical info. He doesn't know what is coming next. Like we said, he can have that feeling, but that feeling isn't 100%. Right? If I told you to invest $50,000 in stocks on XYZ because I got a feeling, you're going to tell me to shut the hell up and take your money. No, I'm just kidding. You're not going to believe me at all. But if I gave you stats, if I show you info, if I'm an inside trader, you're going to take that trade every day of the week, aren't you? Let's be real. Looks like Capoch is going to stabilize control around the base by getting those outposts down. Now, remember, England plays a very different outpost rush style. It's not about directly oppressing the eco lines of your opponent. It's actually about creating a prison. You want to create a perimeter, right, that your opponent can't easily breach. And it also acts as a soft staging point for your assaults with longbows. A nice reset point where you can't be assaulted as easily either. Of course, this strategy has become a little bit less effective after people have realized naked men riding around a horse with 2 ranged armor is pretty damn good. So it is making it a lot more difficult now. So, Capoch, in the meantime, is he going to go on the stone is a question. He did get a little bit initial stone, but the reasoning behind this is simply so that he can get the upgrades on the outposts. He actually just wants to make sure he's got the arrow slits. I don't think there's any intent to go into 2 CCs. I think, if anything, going 2 CCs would just give the game over to LucifroN, especially when he's stacking this many horsemen in the midfield. And this outpost, if Capoch gets it up, it's going to be big. I don't know if this is enough spearmen. I mean, they're hardened, so they're decent. And then look at this right now. LucifroN, he did snipe out the villager, but it cost him a lot of archers. We'll be able to back away from it. He has delayed that network from going up. That's the critical detail for him, but it did cost him dearly to do so. Of course, the beautiful thing is when you do snipe out these villages, there's this more kind of additive effect to like the value, right? Because although it might cost you 3 or 4 units, that's 1 less resource-producing unit your opponent has. So over time, it actually evens up into an advantage, but it does take a decent amount of time at this stage of the game. What's the exact maths on that? I would love to provide it to you, but what do I look like? A mathematician? So outpost will go up. LucifroN won't be able to deny it this time. I think if anything, LucifroN could try to wrap towards Capoch's eco. I think it's just concerned that because it's horsemen, you wouldn't be able to hang around long enough to actually have a big enough like impact. So instead, he just kind of has to do this dance to death. Because the thing is, the Capoch has done a great job of stationing himself in the midpoint of the map. This means that actually from here, he has a soft reset point, but an easy way of like sneaking in if he chooses. But it looks like he's going to take the bait. He's going to wrap around. And this is going to work to Capoch's advantage as long as he doesn't lose the villager. Uh-oh. Oh, that's a big mistake. And he gets away with it. He doesn't even lose a single archer for it. Oh, no. That has got to be so frustrating. Capoch, unlikely to invest any time too soon in another villager on the front, because now he has to worry about his back. He's pushed too far forward with the military force, and now LucifroN has kind of like wedged himself between the reinforcement point and the base. However, this is maybe a little bit ambitious coming out from LucifroN. Moves in with the horseman. Needs to be careful that natural choke point that's being created due to the back side of the wood line, protecting Capoch from an encirclement. Will mean that it's not going to be a good trade for Lucy in the end. We'll have to back away. But the good news is now that he's kind of kept his opponent in check, there's no desire to reinvest in this early outpost play. And if anything, LucifroN is scaling reasonably well. Like, if we look at the military side of things, LucifroN's now at 24 compared to 33. But remember, these horsemen do cost more, but they will have a bigger impact. It's really critical that Capoch continues to scale his spearman count to make sure that he never just gets, like, outpewed by the archers and instantly removed from the equation. Lombos, nice snipe out. The damage being done, and now they're in the attack speed range. LucifroN, he needs to peel off, but he might lose a lot for this. His archers need to deal with the spearman. He can't afford to completely disengage anymore. He's in for a penny and in for the pound. With so few horsemen left and the attack speed buff there, Capoch looks like he's going to win this fight. And that's going to give him a forward staging point. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a villager now move out. No move just yet. Instead, he's going to take this opportunity to move out into the deer line, trying to inflate his food eco. And there it is. There's the Villy. He did sneak in on the west side. This is problematic right now. LucifroN might be in trouble. This wood line, he's wholly reliant on it right now. Even if he shifts to the southern one, he's going to expose a lot of his forward base. And all this because LucifroN seemingly wanted to min-max his food wood in prep for I assume, a castle age timing, if anything. It's a funky play. If it worked out, we would have labeled him as a god, but right now, he's looking a little bit helpless in the face of the English longbowmen. This is the problem. When you go to like 19 or 20, you're just seeing the damage they're doing. They're instantly sniping out these horsemen. It doesn't matter that you get this bonus damage because you never reach your target. Instead, this wide wrap, this feels a little bit desperate. I mean, he needs a hard hit into the eco lines of Capoch. It's not going to be easy, though. These horsemen, with only 6 of them, they only do 10 damage each. And with the TC being so close nearby, I feel like Capoch is not going to lose a single Villy. Possibly one maximum, but what's the damage he's going to do in the meantime? LucifroN will pull back the villagers in time, but now they're not gathering. And while that's happening, he will jump in, snipes out one of the villagers, instantly loses one of the horsemen, make that a second one, because, of course, English TCs have to rapido fire those arrows at double the pace of others. And the Lombos will wrap around LucifroN. He doesn't know! Oh, no, he's going to shift away. The formation shuffle was actually going to save the day. He should have lost a few more villagers than that, but because he had so many far back, they shifted across and were able to get out of range quickly. But wood denied. And Capoch, oh my god, he sees it. Because he's got the outpost on the left side, this arrow slit's going to be frustrating for him, and it's the reason why LucifroN just rushes him. It's going to cost him 1 or 2 villages, but he has no choice. He really is up against the wall here. He has to survive the next 5 minutes to stand a chance to bounce back in this game, because right now, Capoch is in full control. And look at the casualties. Lombos arrive forward. Tries to peel them back. LucifroN never got into the textiles. Luckily for him, he won't lose any of those villagers. Any additional ones anyway. But as it stands, Capoch is trailing. Remember, LucifroN able to scale his French villagers quicker due to the reduced production time on those units. But right now, LucifroN is really starting to peel Capoch apart. He's pulling him left and right. Like, he's not regrouping quick enough. And this is all a catalyst of the fact that Capoch went to the south. Remember what we talk about time and time again when we talk about England. One of the biggest weaknesses is when they have to wrap too wide, when they overextend. Because unlike something comparative such as the French Knights with this early raiding, they're not able to regroup and shift to the other side of the village, of the base as quickly. God, I've been doing this too long. But no, what it means is, like, compared to French Knights who can not only dive in, but they can shift left to right quickly. England, it's more about this static, slow, emphatic control. You move in, you siege, you take full control of the base, and you deny your opponent very convincingly. While when you think about French, Mongols, the way they raid, it's a little bit looser, it's a little bit in and out, it's a little more flimsy. When you're England, you have to show strength. And this move by LucifroN is going to be a fail. He won't be able to complete the outpost. As soon as he gets breathing room, he's under pressure again. And all of a sudden, that eco lead is disappearing for LucifroN. Meanwhile, an outpost going up on the northeast side of the wood line is going to deny him and shift him to the south again. But remember what happened last time. This can work to the advantage of LucifroN if Capoch now wraps to the south. Now, I think the different thing that Capoch is going to do this time around that will change the game entirely is I expect him to drop a secondary outpost on the west side here so that he can actually lead this as a self-established control zone. And then he'll be able to shift towards the south without worrying about being picked apart when he tries to reinforce to the north. A lot of directions there. It's almost like I'm a compass. Horseman riding again. LucifroN has actually caused a lot of frustration in the base of Capoch time and time again with this. Although we'll lose the Horseman in the end, he takes out one or two of the villagers and more importantly stops them from even gathering. So overall, you have to actually be confident with this. It's why, despite the early assassination attempts by Capoch, LucifroN has continued to keep a lead in terms of eco count. It's because he keeps sneaking in small groups of horsemen to do this damage. And after all this, despite the early aggression, notice that LucifroN is getting away with this. Capoch knows about this eco pocket down here, but he can't afford to assault it because he's still only static forces. Imagine this game if Capoch dropped a stable and had 5 or 6 horsemen of his own. Imagine the damage he'd be able to do to LucifroN right now. LucifroN is getting away with murder. And now he's moving out to murder these outposts. Has built into a battering ram. Needs to get rid of the network. Understands that fully. And with this archer count, he can blitz Capoch. Capoch needs to keep range if he stands a chance. The problem is these archers, remember, they move quicker than longbows, so disengaging is problematic once the French get in range. Only 1 or 2 horsemen here, trying to bait the attention of the spears, but you notice he's not even prioritizing them right now. He just wants to get rid of the archer count as quickly as possible. Even with the attack speed buff, there's no way that Capoch can fight him here. He'll start to retreat away. These trades, still good for LucifroN. It's going to give him a lot of breathing room. He needs that breathing room. Remember, he was starting to dry the resources up. He's been networking between these outposts, right? Gathering the resources where he can. But he's running out of them quick. He's tapping through them too quickly. The berries are all but depleted at the back, which meant he needed to move out. And the timing on this was perfect. And this is where you just can't even turn around. I mean, 2 horsemen is frustrating enough. Raid on the east side is good, though. No one here to defend LucifroN. We'll shift his archers across now. Oh, he's going to get the shivs out. Get him, boys! And I am disgusted by the lack of textiles on both sides. Nobody in this game thought textiles was worthwhile, despite the amount of villagers that have been assassinated. Very surprising. Ram, in the meantime, will find its bang for buck as it moves across to deal with its secondary outpost. And all of a sudden, Capoch is starting to lose that influence he had around LucifroN's base. As you can see, Lucy's getting a little bit more frisky with the way he shifts around the map and looks for those greedy pocket ecos. LucifroN hasn't even noticed he's being fired on here. We'll finally deal with the problem. Still has to address these outposts, but now that he has 1 ram, he can very slowly but surely just get through them all. On Lombo, only 1 of them left, so LucifroN kind of unfazed by the damage that just 1 Lombo can do at this stage in the game. More importantly, though, he just needs to get rid of this backside so that he doesn't have to come back to deal with it. That's why he's getting through the house, the outpost, looking for the villager. He just wants to buffer the back of his base as an economy scaling area instead of a risk factor when you talk about the English raids. I'm going to switch to Capoch so we don't hear a million attacks. But you're kind of getting an insight into how frustrating outpost zerging is right now, right? It's not just the oppression of denying your resources. It's when you have to focus on a million and one things, when you're relying on these alerts, these attack alerts to tell you where you're being assaulted, all you can hear is this. You hear that? How frustrating are those noises? Where am I being attacked? Where am I looking? If there's like 5 outposts attacking your buildings for 1 damage, it's just a distraction. It's a guise with which your opponent can snake through and attack you somewhere without you noticing this quickly, even at the highest level. And that's why LucifroN's getting rid of them all. Another outpost is going to fall. Capoch unable to stop the power of the French archer battalion. As the ram will move through and look to get rid of the other outpost, and that will actually end the enclosure entirely. At that stage, Capoch quickly starts to lose control. But nice sneak in with the villager again. Not going to have an immediate impact here, but it is going to keep an eyeball on the back of the base in case LucifroN wants to safely expand here, thinking that he's doing it under the guise of fog of war. Horsemen moving out. Archers need to get in range. However, I don't like this right now for LucifroN. The count's not that great for him. If he out-micros, however, this could be good, and Capoch right now is targeting one archer at a time. Meanwhile, LucifroN goes after 2. And it means he's going to come out ahead. He's min-maxing the damage, and it doesn't even look close. And you would not believe for a second that Capoch started this fight with the lead. As it just looks trivial. Ram's going to get through the outpost. Even the attack speed buff, even with the number advantage and the range advantage, Capoch is falling behind. And it's all because LucifroN is such a micro god. And you see it, he's still targeting 2 for the price of 1. And remember, each of these longbowmen are a little bit more pricey than their archer counterpart, which makes it even better that LucifroN's winning these trades so convincingly. And he knows he just has to invest the force now. Kill as many as you can because you're going to lose the remnant archers if you try and run away. But it's still a good trade. It still pushes Capoch into his base. And while all this is happening, you know LucifroN is amassing new troopers just as quickly as Capoch is. Capoch really going for the cheese play. Trying to sneak this one in, and it is hidden. The mill doesn't spot it. The villagers haven't cut deep enough yet that they see this outpost. So this could become frustrating. However, with this many villages, it might be a lost play. Because I think they could easily burn this to the ground before Arrow Slit's upgrade comes through. I think they might actually reveal it quick enough to do so. And a moment of silence as they're not fighting right now. These Rams are not actually exposed because guess what? Capoch hasn't really been building anymore. I say it's just one spearman appears on the battlefield. Kind of trivial right now for LucifroN. He's just going to roll them in. So archers will try to dish out as much damage as possible, forcing retreat out of Capoch. And Capoch still hasn't actually addressed the horseman that gets bonus damage against him. So free stabs time and time again. It's these small differences that are really adding up and benefiting LucifroN so damn much. In the end, we'll once again be pushed back. Battering Rams are having a coffee break. They'll be back on duty in about 50 minutes. And it looks like the outpost has gone down. The arrow slits. Oh no, this should be where LucifroN knows. He's being attacked now by the outpost, but he can't address it. He has to back up. If he had textiles, he could easily Zerg and rush this down, but now it feels uncomfortable. Capoch moved out again. And this game is already feeling so close, but look at this play out of Lucy. Far, far away from the safety of his original base. He's going to drop a secondary TC at 22 minutes in. This is not going to be expected. However, Capoch, he was trying to stage in the area. And he doesn't know. Neither of them know. And LucifroN will not let Capoch run in here. And if this TC goes down, I feel like you're more confident as LucifroN. Like, it's a little bit stronger of a point than a single outpost. And you should get the initial vision quick enough that you can respond. But look at this. What is going on? Come on. No way. Look at what Capoch done. He snaked the vision. This outpost is going to go down successfully. And LucifroN is being butchered at the back of his base, and he still doesn't realize it. Capoch now having the villager lead by a convincing margin. Oh my good God. I can't believe LucifroN still hasn't clocked this. And it's still assassinating him. Oh my God. And you know why it is? It's because of this. This initial outpost has been attacking the mill the entire time. LucifroN doesn't think it's his villagers dying. He thinks it's the mill being attacked because of the location on the minimap. He doesn't feel like he needs to look back here. And so many of his woodliners have died. Oh my God. And this is the power of the outpost spam in a nutshell. It's when you get caught off guard because you think it's irrelevant details. He finally realizes it, but at what cost? The damage is already done here. This second TC will allow him to recover, but now he needs to recover before he can scale, and that gives opportunities to Capoch. Ram, in the meantime, trying to get through the outpost. Finally. Oh. Can he get with the villagers? It's going to be close. He has to Zerg them in. I think there's enough villies here. They'll burn it down. Not enough villagers to repair it up. I say that. Oh my God, is it taking a long time? However, with the horsemen arriving, the archers as well, he will be able to clean this up at the end. But I think Capoch is happy with this. Sacrifice a few villagers for the damage you've done. Absolutely worthwhile. Right now, LucifroN's just got how could this happen to me playing in the background. 15 villagers behind, despite the fact he's had this TC for, what, like a minute and a half now? As France against England that hasn't teched up. That shouldn't be happening. That should never be happening. Oi, oi, oi. And he never got rid of these outposts, so they're still there. So he's done with this wood line. He can't use his farmland anymore. At least he expanded over here to the secondary TC. Ram needs to address the outpost still in the north, and he still needs to buffer off these troops, which are starting to amass again for Capoch, with Capoch having a clear military lead with over 15 units more. 1.5 times multiplier on your military count. And these longbow, they're lethal. And at 25 minutes in, we see the first knights of the game coming out for LucifroN as France. Yes, I said as France. Operating on horsemen for so long has worked, but now he's like, okay, experimentation over. Back into what France does well. Charges in. This archer count, not looking healthy right now for LucifroN, and now the outposts will become a little bit more worrisome. Before, they were frustration on the side, but now it's signaling from Capoch that he's taking control of this game. LucifroN, I think it's too late for these knight switches as well. Hasn't got multi-stable. I mean, he's got this one at the back. It's not that he's got 3 or 4, though. He can't escalate his knight count quick enough. He doesn't have the food either because he got denied on the mills at the back of his base. And Capoch might seem a little bit cheesy, but this outpost really was MVP of the game. This villager that built them up was MVP of the game. It's done so much work. Little Millie has been running a marathon, and she has been working her arms off. She didn't skip leg day or arm day. She's so small. She has built 5 outposts on her own and denied so much away from LucifroN. Now stuck between a rock and a hard place, and Capoch will push in to crush the Spaniard. And he'll have to back away. And before you know it, Capoch might just turn around, drop the battering rams, and get rid of the TC expansion, at which stage, what do you really have left? A lot of dead villagers is the answer that LucifroN's going to have to give over in this one. I mean, what a way that Capoch has played this. There it is. Rams now being built. Lucy with no answer. He's got no melee units. His villager count, he can't sacrifice him to burn down Rams anymore. He's already trailing by 15 eco units. And I think this is, although it took a little bit longer than your standard English rush, arriving at the same conclusion. A feudal ending in the favor of England at 27 minutes in the game. Nobody will make it to castle, but Capoch will make it to 1 point on the board. LucifroN up against the ropes after Capoch is able to open the series with a win. We head into game 2, where it will be a mirror matchup. That's right. Here on Lepony, it is going to be Abbasid on Abbasid. Let's see what Lucy's bro has taught him, because really, like, honestly, when I think of LucifroN, I more so think of Vortex for the Abbasid side of things, right? Like, he's a very talented Abbasid player. I think he was leading the way on innovating this. So maybe LucifroN's been taking tips from little bro, and he's really stepped up the game, and he's going to surprise us here. Also intrigued to see what Capoch is going to do. Capoch, I don't know if he's been spamming that much Abbasid recently. I feel like he's been practicing other civs a little bit more intensely. But I think you have to get on the Abbasid train a little bit. Like, especially when you're talking about N4C Qualifiers leading into BO7s, this needs to be one of your civs that you're good at. China right now is busted and doesn't work because of some awkward bugs. So a lot of people have avoided it. That means that Abbasid is going to be in the rotation. So both of these players should be competent, very decent, in fact, at Abbasids, because you need to be if you're going to make it through that BO7. And I think after the buffs to the berries and the power of horseman spamming in general, like, a lot of gates feel like they've opened for the Abbasids that weren't previously there. And the TC booming nature of this civ makes it very easy for you to economically tap into that powerhouse that is horseman, as we saw in the last game. I mean, that was France as well, right? So, like, France can produce quicker, but obviously, like, their economy is more stunted. So I'm intrigued to see if we actually just get like, the TC on TC boom. Maybe we see someone go a little bit aggressive. I think someone I haven't seen in a long time that we often forget is even feasible is Dark Age Ram Rushes. That's something that you can do as the Abbasids that no other civ can do. Not expecting it here, though. I think, like, that concept is very dead. I think the only time I've recently seen a player do that is when they are very heavily outmatched and they gamble on an all-in. We're talking like player who hasn't played on LAN before, hasn't even played in a tournament before, showing up in the rankings and facing up against like Viper in the first round of BO1. He's like, oh, if I catch the snake off guard with this, I might get him. That style of play. We've seen that a few times before with those early Ram rushes. But when you're talking about these more talented players, no offense to that, like, but more established players, more proven players, shall we say, they have a tendency to try and establish control, choke their opponent in, and then resort to Rams. It's not an instant knee-jerk reaction. It's a catalyst from the earlier results. So don't expect to see too much Ram rushing in the Dark Age anytime soon from these lads. So first thing to look at is generation situation. Who got the better side of things? And it looks like I'd give a slight edge to Lucy. I like the layout of his base quite a lot here, actually. I think the main thing for me is the wood lines. Capoch has to play very far forward to access a secondary wood line, whereas LucifroN instantly has one ahead of him and then one behind him at the side. And then he has the natural defense of these mountains. Look at the placement on these, actually. They're pretty nice. So it forces a very wide wrap if Capoch wants to flank here, and he can get stuck in a lot of choke points. I think LucifroN could also benefit a lot from like initial walling around this area near the Stealth Forest, because he'll instantly get access to more berries and he'll be able to block his opponent out and force him wide. So I think that's what LucifroN's going to be looking to play towards. It will stop any early aggression from horsemen being like oblivious, and it will force them into choke points where you can maybe station a few spearmen and completely buffer your opponent back. So tech-wise, looks like Lucy does have the slight edge. Remember, when you're playing Abbasids, there's no way to accelerate the rate in which you unlock the next tech up. It's a fixed timing. It was improved. Remember, it used to be 120 seconds. They put it down to 105 to make it more competitive with other civs. And it really is showing. In conjunction with the berry buffs, it's not uncommon to see an Abbasid player crack feudal before, say, France or, you know, sometimes even maybe England, depending on their format. And it is going to be instant on the stone. And Capoch will scout this out. On the other side, no move on the stone yet from Capoch. Now, this is interesting. This could be indicative of early game aggression. It could also just signal that he's waiting to see what his opponent is doing first before going to stone, and they'll go a lot harder. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. I'm not against like the idea of trying to go all in. Mainly, I'm just a little bit biased because I like to see like differing styles instead of two people playing the exact same thing for 15 minutes. And I think we all know how Abbasid's the exact same for 15 minutes goes. TC, TC, TC. So kind of intrigued to see if there's going to be that differing of approach. It is at least going to be Eco Wing to open up for both. It's just way too good, guys. Like, fresh foodstuffs is such a valuable tech to get instantly. If you think about how many villages you build in a game, think about like the fact like, oh, you're going to add 80 villages at least to your economy. And you're going to save 25 food on each of them. That adds up really quickly. You can already imagine in your head. I'll let you do the maths. I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's so much saved economy. And it doesn't, like, you don't risk doing anything. That makes sense, right? Like, it's not like if I went military wing and then I go into camel support and I feel like this pressure to find value out of early on. It's economy. It's going to scale. It's going to be beneficial constantly. And looks like still no stone for Capoch. So he will respond with racks of his own after he forced LucifroN into one. But this does mean that LucifroN, while potentially vulnerable, is going to have that scalability. And it's all whether Capoch can actually double down on early aggression now to outdo his opponent. I like that he's playing pocket eco. Seeing his opponent went into a TC, a secondary TC, or tends to go into a secondary TC rather, it's going to allow him to move out onto these food berry lines that are usually quite risky. This, however, is going to catch him off guard and force him off. This will slow down his economy a little bit. This is very frustrating. In fact, Capoch, yeah, he's going to turn around the shivs, but this spearman has already kind of done his damage. Even if he doesn't kill any of these villages, it's the fact that they're not gathering. And if LucifroN just keeps coming in and poking and prodding and forcing him back, you're not happy. Like, Capoch wishes he had this spearman out sooner, because if you actually were to math this out, the amount of food that's missing in your economy because of how long you've wasted dancing around the spear is noticeable for the Abbasids. And there's the secondary TC. LucifroN with a very loose placement as well. I love this. Because you're up against Abbasids and your opponent has shown spears already and nothing else, and he was so delayed getting those spears out, you kind of understand that Capoch, although he's not building TCs like you are, he is playing a greedy style of Abbasids, just one TC with the rush into castle. So you know that initially you can get away with this very loose format for your economy. The problem is going to occur, as you can see it right now, is Capoch is close to cracking castle, and it just might be a military wing into immediate aggression out of him. And you have to be mindful, just with spears alone, rushing castle in an Abbasid matchup can actually get you the dub just because you're able to build siege weapons in the field instantly. There it is. Tech up underway. It's going to be the culture wing. That'll give him more scalability compared to the military wing. And mainly military wing doesn't get its value until Imperial anyway, unless you're going into camels, which this strategy isn't about camels. This strategy is about moving out and building siege weapons. And this could get scary very fast for LucifroN. So Scout, keeping vision. Capoch has been playing somewhat blind. You can see it as well. He's finally going to send Spearman in to be a little bit annoying for LucifroN. LucifroN trying to give himself some scalability now, but he's going to be notably delayed compared to Capoch. And I wouldn't be surprised if Capoch sets up a second Rax and just looks to push out a bunch of Spearmen to quickly construct those siege weapons in the field. Spearmen are being really annoying. Like, I don't remember the last time I saw Spearmen being so annoying to villagers at this stage. It's been a while. Usually Spearmen are annoying because there's outposts that garrisoning. Oh no, Lucy! I think you could have chased that down. I think that would have been an easy clap. But it's still delaying them. It's still noticeable. But it looks like Lucy this time is going to buy up more than he can chew, get some range to the TC. Man, this is actually obnoxious. Like, Capoch is still hitting a good timing, right? But the delays this has caused has been notable. 5 villages over here being delayed. 2 or 3 villages here, there, and everywhere. And only 1 Spearman cost. It feels like these Spearmen are actually paying for themselves just by how much harassment is forcing the villagers off of these eco lines. It's kind of wacky to think about, but it's definitely adding up. And it looks like LucifroN is about to complete that tech up. No, not LucifroN, sorry, Capoch. LucifroN's only just started his. And remember, he's locked in now. So, 1 minute 20. That's the edge that Capoch has. Can he do anything with it? He's going to need to. He's dropping the racks now. He's prepping the man-at-arms. He needs to move fast, though. And I was kind of surprised he didn't move out to the center of the map. I think he could have shifted 2 villages out, built racks up here, but obviously, because he didn't have the initial spearman, he was worried that LucifroN would aggress him. It would have been much better for him just to be closer to the front with the man-at-arms, because to this, when you look at the strategy, to me, this feels like an all-in from Capoch. Like, if he doesn't get value out of this in the next 5 minutes, the game is very difficult for him. Even if he tries to scale into a TC later, we can already see the difference here. Capoch is trailing by 8 villages compared to LucifroN. And LucifroN is not going to get assassinated by an outpost this game, because it's just not the way that Capoch plays Abbasids. Even more the racks coming out. The question is whether LucifroN is going to prep his military district ahead of time. And in fact, with 2 archery ranges, I kind of feel like he has. He can build crossbowmen. Also, the crossbowmen, they can build mangonels. So you feel pretty good about this. And Capoch will start to move out. This is a very, very thin line to walk, though. He has to actually perfect this, or he can easily just fall out this game in the blink of an eye. But he's moving in. Man-at-arms are going to arrive. We'll force the villagers off of the gold lines. And when they start to arrive in groups of 4 or 5, that's when it gets quite frustrating for LucifroN. But LucifroN, already 3 archery ranges, is prepping the crossbows. Villager's going to back off. Capoch, this is worrying. A ram is not the play, my friend. Oh, no. All right, this is going to get problematic fast now. Unless Capoch instantly goes on the stone line now, this gets dangerous. In the meantime, villagers are going to revolt and take out that annoying spearman at the back. These man-at-arms, now they're in trouble. Crossbow's starting to come out. The question is, does he have enough Zerg factor? The fact that he has to still build the siege weapons, and that siege weapon is not a mangonel, suggests to me that he does not. In fact, he has to bail on the battering ram and back away entirely. And now this gets a bit dicey. 14 Villi lead right now for LucifroN. That will continue to escalate. Mangonel now being built. This should have been being built in the first place. I think Capoch kind of crippled himself by not getting this up sooner. And it has given breathing room to LucifroN. Like, think about what LucifroN's been able to do in this time. He started to push out additional crossbowmen. He's now up to, like, 8. His villager count continues to scale up. He's being a little bit risky with eco. He needs to be careful with the crossbows. But now that he sees the mangonels being placed, he could easily play into Springles, and he has a buffed up enough economy that he can afford it. Not if he keeps pushing out villagers like that, though. Instead, it's just going to be spearmen. All he really needs to do is burn these down, right? Because the other issue you have is you don't have villagers on the front, so you can't repair Mangonel. The Mangonel's shot out, though. Nice sidestep. Most of the damage gets dodged out by LucifroN. Critical move there. Otherwise, it would have been a critical hit. And I think LucifroN, if I'm not mistaken, still... Yeah, he still has the waypoint. I was about to say, this is odd behavior. And now the ram. This is better. I like this approach from Capoch. You needed the Mangonel as a threat. However... There is now a Springald to play, so all of a sudden your plans fall apart. And because you only send in half the man-at-arms, you do not kill the Springald, and you're not able to do any damage at all. Instead, you just take a bunch from the crossbow line. And I feel like Capoch needs a transition. I don't think man-at-arms with Siege is going to win this. Because your opponent can match the Siege, and he has crossbows to counter out the man-at-arms. And look how quickly they die. By the time they reach the Springald, they're all dead. So they're just offering themselves up as tribute right now. The only good thing for Capoch is he's holding the staging point, but the problem is he's not really switching. Like he's not transitioning into pressure. It's just existing. Villagers. LucifroN's gonna have a few butchered there. A little bit of a whoopsie daisy. Probably shouldn't have lost those troops. Capoch is stabilizing himself with food. It has to be said that LucifroN is suffering because he hasn't switched over into farmlands, and he's about to drain himself as well. So this is where it gets worrisome. LucifroN, despite the fact he has a noticeable eco lead, doesn't have access to the deer and the sheep and the berries. This is actually really well identified by Capoch. So now he's going to drop the outpost. All of a sudden, you can't access his food resources. And instead, LucifroN doesn't have any great options. It's far off to the east to go to the berry bushes. It's far up to go to the deer, which I don't think did he even scout? He knows about them, but he's not playing towards them. And this might cost him dearly. He hasn't prepped for a switch over to farms either, because now he needs wood influx to be able to afford Springwalls to counter out his opponent's composition. And this is a dicey line to dance right now for Lucy. However, if he snipes the Maganel, it's well worth it. Oh, he gets rid of the Springwall straight away. And he's rolling out. Mago might fall if you're not careful. Capoch is going to have to back off entirely. That means the outpost is going to be forfeit. Just about limping the Maganel away. Springwall's going to back off due to the man-at-arms, and he will start to repair it. But he's been buffered away, and all of a sudden, LucifroN going to start to push out, and this game gets a little bit worrisome for Capoch. Nice sneaking on the back, though. Denies the gold. However, LucifroN does have reserves, and these crossbowmen aren't too pricey. Only 40 gold, so he'll get a decent influx of them out again. And not enough man-at-arms. You have to wonder, if you had Delhi Force March, how damn good would you look in this game as the Abbasids? But in this state, it just feels like these man-at-arms are whiffing. They're there, they're present, but because it got identified so quickly, and Capoch, because he was kind of impatient and didn't build up to, say, at least 8 man-at-arms, he revealed his hand a little bit too quick, and it allowed LucifroN to naturally cruise into the counter with these crossbows. And once again, you know what this comes back to, folks? Vision. Look at the way that Capoch is playing. His vision is given by his pocket ecos. LucifroN earlier on had these scouts constantly circling the base. He spotted out these additional racks being dropped, and it really did give him the edge. And all of a sudden, Capoch has 23 units that just feel useless. I don't know. Like, it's too late to go for a secondary TC. What is your play in this situation? It looks like it's going to be a stable drop. He's going into the Horseman. This will either save him or kill him. Either way, it's going to be quick. Maganel's now being prepped. And the other worrisome part is that Capoch put this at the front of his base. So he hasn't got much time to amass a force before it gets burnt down. LucifroN moving in. The only good news right now for Capoch is, as you can see, it's a ranged army, so they don't really kill buildings very fast. However, they can kill anything squishy they find, and Capoch needs to shift away quickly. We'll get out of range just before he's spotted here. And getting more wood, as he needs it for these horsemen. I think he needs probably about 12 horsemen to feel good about going in here. The problem is the number is in flux. He doesn't know what LucifroN's fielding until he arrives in the fight because he's playing blind, right? I mean, you can see that count just went up from, what was it, 17 to 24. So LucifroN is non-stop escalating this. He's not looking for a transition. He understands that right now it's on Capoch to transition first. And he's not going to blink until his opponent does. And that's a big no. Capoch taking off the food line by just a few spearmen. He'll shift the entire man-at-arms battalion across, but he's already been pushed away. And that is stunting his growth. Look at his food right now. His eco is starved. I don't think he can hold on much longer. I mean, this is going to escalate. You can see the outpost crew coming out from LucifroN. Capoch is going to have to go, and he's going to have to do so soon. Lucy Now switching in with the racks, getting the spearmen out because he already knew what was coming. Remember, when he moved in on the racks, he saw the stables. So Capoch is going to be counted ahead of time. And this is where it gets worrisome. Rams now being built. LucifroN says, let me show you how this is done, buddy. Shh. Abbasid mirror matchup. Do you know how my brother is? He was doing this before it was popular. LucifroN, I think he's going to force a third game here. Wouldn't mind a fourth one as well. But Capoch, it's do or die. And with only 12 horsemen in the field and 11 spearmen already showing for LucifroN, I don't know how you take this fight. You need a Mangonel play. The Springles are not the answer right now. You need to gamble on sniping out all these crossbowmen, but instead, he invests in the Springles, doesn't try to use the Stealth Forest to his advantage, and he's going to be forced to engage, and it's not going to be a good engagement. Mangonel's father, first round, second round is going to be better as everything is stacked on top of each other. Crossbows start stepping back, damage done to the horsemen already. The wrap in from Capoch is not looking good. And it is looking like LucifroN is going to clean house. The Mangonel's unaddressed, no army left, and I think we may need a game 3 to decide who is going to proceed through here, because there is no way in hell Capoch can bounce back.